Well, good morning, everybody. So, we begin this series of lectures on the chapter of Wrong Man, Worker's Paradise by Rabindranath Tagore. So, first of all, we will discuss about the life and work of Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore, who composed the national anthem of India and won the Nobel Prize for Literature, was a multi-talented personality in every sense. He was a Bengali poet and Brahma Samaj philosopher, visual artist, playwright, novelist, painter, and a composer. He was also a cultural reformer who modified Bengali art by rebuffing the structures that confined it within cultural reformer, the shape of classical Indian forms. Though he was a polymath, his literary work alone are enough to place him in the elite list of all-time greats. Even today, Rabindranath Tagore is often remembered for his poetic songs, which are both spiritual and mercurial. He was one of those great minds ahead of his time, and that is exactly why his meeting with Albert Einstein is considered as a clash between science and spirituality. Tagore was keen in spreading his ideologies to the rest of the world and hence embarked on a world tour lecturing in countries like Japan and the United States. Soon his works were admired by people of various countries and he eventually became the first non-European to win a Nobel Prize in 1913. Apart from Jan Gana Mana, the national anthem of India, his composition Amar Sonar Bangla was adopted as a national anthem of Bangladesh, and the national anthem of Sri Lanka was inspired by one of his work. Just we will discuss about the childhood and the early life of the Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was born on 7th of May 1861 to Debarnath Tagore and Sarda Devi in Jorasako Masan, the ancestral home of the Tagore family in Calcutta. He was the youngest son among 13 children. Though the Tagore family had many members, he was mostly raised by servants and maids as he lost his mother while he was still very young, and with his father being an extensive traveler. At a very young age, Rabindranath Tagore was part of the Bengal Renaissance, which his family took active participation in. He was also a child prodigy as he started penning down poems at the age of only 8. He also started composing art works at a tender age and by the age of 16. He had started publishing poems under the Calcutta publication. He also wrote the short story Bhikharini in 1877 and the poem collection Sandhya Sangeet in 1882. He drew inspiration by reading the classical poetry of Kalidasa and started coming up with classical poems of his own. Some of other influences and inspirations come from his brothers and sisters, while his elder brother was a poet and philosopher and now was a highly respected position. His sister was a well-known novelist. Tagore was largely home-schooled and was trained by his siblings in his field of gymnastics, material arts, anatomy, literature, history, and toured the country of many months. During the journey, he accumulated knowledge on the several subjects. His stay at Amritsar paved the way for him to learn about the Sikkim, an experience which he would later on use to pen down as many as 6 poems and many articles on the religion. Now we will discuss about the education of Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore's traditional education began in Brighton, East Sussex, England at a public school. He was sent to England in the year 1878 as his father wanted him to become a barrister. He was later joined by some of his relatives like his nephew, niece and sister-in-law in order to support him during his stay in England. Rabindranath Tagore had always despised formal education and thus showed no interest in learning from his school. He was later on enrolled at the University College in London, where he was asked to learn law. But he once again dropped out and learned several works of Shakespeare on his own. After learning the essence of England, Irish and Scottish literature and music, he returned to India and married Mrinalini Devi when she was just 10 years old. Rabindranath Tagore's father had bought a huge stretch of land in Santiniketan with an idea of establishing an experimental school in his father's property. He shifted base to Santiniketan in 1901 and founded an ashram there. He was a prayer hall with marble flooring and was named the Mandir. The classes there were held under trees and followed the traditional Guru Shishya method of teaching. Rabindranath Tagore hoped that the revival of this ancient method of teaching would have beneficial when compared to the modernized method. Unfortunately, his wife and two of his children died during their stay in Santiniketan, and this left Rabindranath distraught. In the meantime, his works started growing more and more popular amongst the Bengali as well as the foreign readers. This eventually gained him recognition all over the world, and in 1913 Rabindranath Tagore was awarded the prestigious Nobel Prize in Literature, becoming Asia's first Nobel laureate. Now the world tour. Since Rabindranath Tagore believed in the concept of one world, he set out on a world tour in an attempt to spread his ideologies. He also took along with him his translated works, which caught the attention of many legendary poets. He also lectured in countries like the United States and Japan. Soon after, Tagore found himself visiting places like Mexico, Singapore and Rome, where he met national leaders and important personalities including the like of Einstein and Mussolini. In 1927, he embarked on a Southeast Asian tour and inspired many world leaders, with his wisdom and literary work. Tagore also used this opportunity to discuss with many world leaders the issue between the Indians and the English. Though his initial aim was to put an end to nationalism, Rabindranath Tagore, over a period of time, realized this nationalism was mightier than his ideology, and hence developed further hatred towards it. By the end of it all, he had visited as many as 30 countries spread over 5 continents. Now we will discuss Rabindranath Tagore's literary work. During his lifetime, Rabindranath Tagore wrote several poems, novels, and short stories. Though he started writing at a very young age of 8, he desired to produce more number of literary works only enhanced post of the death of his wife and children. Some of his literary works are mentioned below. Short stories, novels, poems. Few are very famous. Tagore began to write short stories when he was only a teen. He started his writing career during the initial stage of his career. His stories reflected the surroundings in which he grew. He also made sure to incorporate social issues and problems of the poor man in his stories. He also wrote about the downside of Hindu marriage and several other customs that were part of the country's tradition back then. Some of his poems, short stories, including just like today's lecture, A Wrong Man's Worker's Paradise. We can get the particular example of this short story. And just we talk about the novels. It is said that among his works, his novels are mostly underappreciated. One of the reasons for this could be his unique style of narrating a story. If we just talk about the poems, Rabindranath Tagore drew inspiration from ancient poets like Kabir and Ram Prasad Sen, and thus his poetry is often compared to the 15th and 16th century work of classical poets. By infusing his own style of writing, he made people to take note of not only his works but also the work of ancient Indian poets. Tagore's saint as an actor. Now, Tagore wrote many dramas based on Indian mythology and contemporary social issues. He began his drama work along with his brother when he was only a teen. When he was 20 years old, he not only did pen the drama Valmiki Pratibha but also played the titular character. The drama was based on legendary dacoit Valmiki, who later reforms and pens down one of two Indian epics, Ramayana. Now, in a few words, we will discuss about the political career of Rabindranath Tagore. Though Tagore denounced nationalism, he also vouched for the Indian independence through some of his politically charged songs. He also supported Indian nationalist and publicity, criticized the European imperialism. He also criticized the education system that was forced upon India by the English. In 1915, he received knighthood from the British crown, which he later renounced, citing the massacre held at Jallianwala Bagh. He said that the knighthood meant nothing to him when the British failed to even consider his fellow Indians as humans. The last days and death of Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore spent the last few years of his life in constant pain and was bogged down by 2 long bouts of illness. In 1937, he went into a comatose condition which relapsed after a period of 3 years. After an extended period of suffering, Tagore died on August 7, 1941 in the same Jorasanko mansion in which he was brought up. Since Rabindranath Tagore changed the way Bengali literature was viewed, he left an everlasting impression on many. After from many of his busts, the statues that have been erected in many countries, many yearly events pay tribute to the legendary writer. Many of his works were made international thanks to a host of translations by many famous international writers. There are 5 museums dedicated to Tagore, while 3 of them are situated in India. The remaining 2 are in Bangladesh. The museum house his famous work and are visited by millions every year. Now, the next slide about origin and meaning of essay in English language. Now we discuss what is an essay. An essay is a short piece of composition that expresses the writer's composition, the writer's opinion on a particular subject. It is a major form of literature that includes many types of writings, such as magazine articles, the newspaper editorials. Composition is the art of composing an article on a theme or subject. A piece of composition has to be written in clear and grammatically correct English so that it becomes interesting to read. You know, you can write on any topic you like. You can express your thoughts in any way you like. There is no hard and fast rule regarding the size of an essay. It could consist of any number of paragraphs. The first man who used the term ESSAI essay was a Frenchman called Michael de Montaigne. He wrote about his feelings on certain ideas like idleness, agony, etc. In the late 1500s, the French English essayist was Sir Francis Bacon, who wrote on subjects like death, fear, friendship, studies, etc. in the early 1700s. Structure. If we discuss about the structure of the essay, an essay has a loose structure. According to Samuel Johnson, an essay is an irregular, indigested piece of writing. However, well-structured essay also exists. Academic essays, for example, follow a well-structured pattern. In any case, structure or its absence doesn't seem to matter much in any case of essays. Generally speaking, an essay has an introduction and a conclusion. You can find several paragraphs between the introductory and the ending paragraph. There are several different types of essays. An essay can be formal or informal, personal and familiar. Formal essays tend to have a rigid structure. They also are more expository and systematic. Informal essays, on the other hand, have a personal, intimate and often humorous style. They could even be written in conversational language. Now, the next slide about the short story, its kinds and its essentials. A short story is a kind of prose fiction which has grown up besides the novel and which has its own important and recognized place in literature. It may be defined as a prose narrative requiring from half an hour to 1 hour for its pursuit. In other words, brevity is the keynote of a short story. It is a story which is physically possible to read one sitting, but it must not be supposed that the short story is a novel on a reduced scale. It has a definite technique of its own and has its own specific requirements of matter and treatment. Now, we discuss about its antiquity and universality. Though immensely popular in modern times, the short story is not a modern product. It has been popular in every age and in every country. From times immemorial, people old and young have always liked to be entertained, and the short story has been their most popular entertainment. The earliest forms of the short story were the tales of advantage and adventure, dealing with the deeds of valor and of some popular heroes. Every country has got its own legends and mythology and tales from them on their modification have always been in wide curriculum circulation. Tales told in the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Buddhist, Panchatantra, these all the Arabian Nights and the Decameron testify to the popularity of the short story all over the world. The modern short story, if you just talk about the modern short story, it is a work of art. But these tales of adventure and moral tales of the past have no resemblance with the modern short story. Short story in the hands of the modern masters is a perfect work of art. As an artistic form, it has undergone a gradual evolution and has developed into a popular form of modern literature. The modern short story writer is an artist who is a close observer of life, a keen student of character, and a master of style. Every subject between heaven and earth is now regarded fit for the short story, and it can be told in any manner which may please the artist. Now, its essential characteristics of short story. The primary aim of short story is to entertain. Hence, a short story must be interesting above everything else. It may convey some moral lesson. It may be ridicule human follies, but it must do all this is in interesting manner. It must observe the reader and make him forget the worries of his life for the time being. If it does not do so, it cannot be regarded as a good short story in spite of all the other excellent qualities that it may have. Now, types of short story, its immense variety. So there are so many kinds of short stories, like the love story, like the adventure story, the detective story, the psychological story, the scientific story, etc. These all. So immense is the variety of the short story in the modern age. On the basis of their themes, short stories may be classified as followed. Love story, the love is essential ingredient of human life. The love story is generally liked by the readers because there is an appeal to our emotions and our passions in a love story. The plot of the love story is generally the same. Everybody knows a man meets a woman, he is attracted to her in enhancing and infatuated, ravishing beauties. She is gradually attracted towards him, but the course of the true love does not run smooth. The lovers are opposed by their parents or social laws. There is a conflict. Ultimately, we can say that the opponents are forced to agree their wishes and they are happily married. And sometimes there is a revival of the lovers, the hero of the story. If ultimately the villain of the rival is defeated and punished and the hero marries the woman he loves, it is the comedy pure and simple. If in the bitter class the hero is overcome and falls, the ending is tragic. with a little change in detail, name and setting. Nearly all love stories follows this pattern. So all kinds of stories like have such stories. Just we talk about the adventurous story. So there are scene of adventures there. Just we talk about the detective story. We can find the detection there. If you just talk about psychological story, so psychology is a study of the mental process of the characters. It helps us to understand how under certain circumstances and situation a normal man will act. And the scientific story, if you just talk about, so the scientific story deals with the facts of science. That is an interesting imaginative manner. The subject matter of the story is provided by the varied branches of the science, but the treatment of the dull scientific matter is carried off on imaginatively. Finally, we talk about the social story. The short story have been written on social problems. There are a number of social problems which face every social, and stories are written on these subjects. The aim of the social story is to focus on the intricate social problems is an interesting manner. The stories of John Galsworthy are purely social stories. In them we find the conflict between society and the individual. The writer questions the validity of the prevailing customs and of the society, and he discussed the subject of his like social equality, the distribution of wealth, and the righteousness of social laws, etc. So these social stories are very interesting. We can serve the useful purpose of reforming the evils of our social life. Now the next slide, a brief summary of a wrong man's worker's paradise. A wrong man in worker's paradise is a, we can say, short story. It is the first appeared on the Spectator. Actually, it is Bengali text which was translated into English. The author begins the story by describing the protagonist as a man who never believed in mere utility. He had no useful work, so he indulged in mad whims and impulses. He painted and made little pieces of sculptures, men, women, and castles, and end up wasting his time on all useless and needless things. Thus people laughed and jeered at him. He spent his life on earth in doing useless work. But fate and destiny, moving finger, had inadvertently painted his permanent abode as paradise after death on this earth. Just like a student who hardly study end up passing the exam, so this man ends up in paradise having done nothing useful and productive in life. The gates of heaven opened wide in paradise, having done nothing useful and productive in life. The gates of heaven opened wide for him, and he was sent to the workers' paradise. But the newcomer did not fit in well with the atmosphere in workers' paradise. He lounged in the streets absent-mindedly and was jostled by the hurrying men of there. He was happy to be busy. He lay in the green meadows or close to the fast-flowing streams, torrent. There was a girl there. A girl went hustling, bustling every day to a silent torrent. Silent, since in the workers' paradise event a torrent would not waste its energy singing to fill her pitcher. Her movements were like the rapid movement of a skilled hand on the string of a guitar. She seemed to be in a tearing hurry all the time to finish her undone task. The girl of the silent torrent felt that to be idle was sin, and one had to be busy all the time doing some work. The girl, on watching the relaxed man doing nothing useful and wasting his precious time, feels pity for him and asks him about his work. But he informs that he has not a moment to spare for work, while the girl surprisingly has not a moment to spare on account of work. The girl, who never understood what he said, was quick enough to say that she should be happy to spare some work for him if he would like to, which he happily responded, saying that he had not waiting work for him if he would like to, which he happily responds, saying that he had been waiting there only to take some work from her. On asking about his choice of work, he requests for one of her picture that she can spare for him. She wanted to know if the purpose was to draw water from the torrent or for some other purpose, and annoyingly baffled by his response when he says that he would like to draw pictures on her picture. He departs by saying that she has no time to waste on such futile things. The girl was very firm in her decision of not yielding to the man's request, and finally she gave her picture to him. But the man persists and prevails over the busy person, and she finally gives in. The girl stared in amazement at the colorful pictures on the picture when he hands it over her and asks the purpose of those colorful lines. The man laughs and says that a picture never has any meaning and it never serves any purpose. In the confines of her home, away from the prying eyes of others, she scans the painting from all angles, and it awe-struck with its beauty, although it had no purpose or meaning. She was fascinated with the man's skill in painting and saw newer possibilities open up before her. From that day on, the hastening girl never hurried anymore, as she started having thoughts that had no meaning or no purpose. She was attracted by art and was trying to rearrange priorities. The meaningless was slowly becoming meaningful. The man asked for some more work the next time, and this time he agreed to weave a colored ribbon for her hair without any purpose. When the wrong man offered to make ribbons for her, the girl was eager to know why he would make a ribbon for her hair. But once he offered the colored ribbon, she started spending a lot of time tying the ribbon around her hair, and a new joy had awakened in her mind. Much of her usual work remained unfinished, work in paradise that began to suffer, as many people who had been active before were now indulging in useless things such as painting, sculptures, and wasting their precious time anywhere in any work. So that was a chaos there. So the anxious elders called for a meeting, as this never before phenomenon was turning the people into the elders. It is then that the aerial messenger appears and confesses. Regarding the mistake made by the bringing the wrong man in workers' paradise, the elder man is summoned and asked to quickly depart from the place paradise. To his utmost relief, the girl immediately agrees to accompany the wrong man. He comes up forward with the wrong man, to which the elders gasps in surprise, as never before a thing such as this had taken place, a thing that had no meaning and had no purpose at all. The line, "the man never believed in mere utility," means that the man never believed that he should do anything just because it is useful and productive. He was the opinion that it was not necessary, that something should be done only if it is valued and useful. The girl who only knew and believed in mere works and utility became a completely transformed person under the influence of the man who was an artist. So art is the work, art is great. She was ready to leave her work and place just to follow the man who had such an influence on her. At the end of the story, there is a complete change in the girl's attitude to life. The credit should go to the elders, who as an artist was committed to his craft. He loved the talent he possessed more than anything else, even after coming to place where everyone was working and no one had any liking for his art. He did not give up. Sometimes, though he had many capabilities, we fail to recognize and nurture it. But in this case, the man succeeded in not only the recognizing it from within, but was also successful in having its impact. The girl of the silent torrent first and everyone else later. Many a times there are no takers for our talents, but in this story, although the girl did not show any interest in the artistic values of the man, slowly she became open-minded and realizes that art has some meaning and purpose and accepts the wholeheartedly. Initially, before the artist had his impact on the men in the workers' paradise, the attitudes of the initially before the artist had his impact, the artist towards duty were diagonally opposed to each other. The man believed that one had to do some work which is useful and not waste time on other activities. But the wrong one had to do some work which is useful and not waste time on other activities. But the wrong man, who was an artist, continually engages in his so-called purposeless and futile work, which was quite different from the work of the man. According to him, any work which gives joy to our mind and makes this world appear beautiful is quite significant. There are two words in the story: the world of the elders, artist, and the world of the hustlers, people in paradise. Both the words are equally important. The world of the elders, artist, is important because it makes our mind happy. It is the world where all of us forget our sorrows and take delight in the activities of our life. That world of the aesthetic makes our life colorful, though it appears like having no meaning or purpose at all surfacingly. Similarly, the word of the inhabitant of the workers' paradise is also equally significant. This is the world which helps us to survive. The physical work undertaken uh, in this world can only feed our mouths, nothing else. If not, we will starved to death. In this way, both these worlds are complementary to each other. One takes care of the mind and other our duty. Now, a brief discussion about the use of time in life and moral of the story by Rabindranath Tagore. This time is something that is very precious, which never comes back. It is said that time is lost forever. So every moment that passes by is a lost moment. There is no need to panic though. We are also given an opportunity to spend these moments wisely. Do you ever think about the best use of time limited resources? Yes, we think just like a thought and realized all of us can use time just if we talk about to enrich our soul, we can use the time in meditation. Just we spend time in solitude, introspect, do whatever helps all of us. So we have to know the use of time. That is, if particular subject suits to you, if time suits you, then record your thoughts in a journal, in writing, in as a volunteer for a cause close to your heart without expecting anything in return. You can enrich your body. Take your time to listen to your body. Stop when you are tired and exhausted. Take time to relax and unwind. Learn about the food making. Learn about that is good for your body. Learn about tell time to cook healthy food and pick up fresh food and for the body. And just you can enrich your mind in reading books, writing, express, creating, learning, something, these all, etc. And you also earn daily bread and beyond. Do not just spend your time investing. Focus on being efficient. Avoid wasting your time. Do more than what people expect you to do. You can fulfill your dreams. You can care about those who matter to you. You can make a difference and to work on what you matter. The world needs less of pollutions. The world needs clean water. The world needs our generation, and the next one needs better health. So we can do for utilizing our precious time. We have more and more works. So after talking about the using the proper time according to the author, now we talk about the moral of the story. The time the man never believed in the mere utility. In this particular story in Workers' Paradise, to means that the man never believed that he should do anything just because it is useful and productive. He has of the opinion that it is not necessary that something should be done only if it is valued and useful. The girl who only knew and believed in mere work and utility became a completely transformed person under the influence of man who was an artist. And everybody thinks about him that he is a useless person. Every time just he wasted his time. At the end of the story, there is a complete follow. The man who had such an influence on her. At the end of the story, there is a complete change in the girl's attitude to life. The credit should go to the elder who, as an artist, was committed to his craft. He loved the talent he possessed more than anything else. Even after coming to the place where everyone was working and no one had any liking for his art, he did not give up. Sometimes though we have many capabilities, we fail to recognize and nurture it. But in this case, the man succeeded in not only the recognizing it from within, but was also successful in having it impact the girl of the silent torrent first and everyone else later. Many a time there are no takers for our talents, but in this story, although the girl did not show any interest in the artistic values of the man, slowly she becomes open-minded and realizes that the art had something meaning and purpose and accept it wholeheartedly. Thank you.